The first time I screamed, no one came in. Not the nurse, not the doctor, not even my husband, who I knew was just outside that door. At first, I thought it was the pain, that it had distorted everything, the sounds, the timing, the way reality moves when your body is no longer yours. But then I turned my head, and I saw her, my mother, standing in the doorway, one hand wrapped around the handle, her body angled just enough to fill the frame without making it obvious. Not dramatic, not loud, just final. Another contraction hit. Harder this time. It didn't feel like pain anymore. It felt like my body was being pulled apart from the inside, like something ancient and unstoppable had decided I no longer mattered. Mom. That was all I got out before my voice collapsed into it. She didn't move, didn't rush to me, didn't step forward, didn't even look like she was about to. She just said, "No one goes in." Calm, flat, controlled. Not to me, to someone outside, and something in me shifted. Because in that moment, I realized she wasn't helping. She was deciding. I couldn't see the hallway clearly, just shadows, movement, the shape of someone trying to step forward and stopping. Because of her. Because she said no. Because somehow that was enough. Let him in. I tried again. My throat was dry. My voice barely held. I don't even know if I meant my husband anymore. I just needed someone, anyone, who wasn't her. She looked at me then. Really looked. And there was no panic in her face. No urgency. No fear. Just that same quiet certainty she had always had. The kind that makes other people hesitate before they realize they were allowed to act. "You need to focus," she said. Soft. Like she was calming me down. Like the problem was mine. Another contraction tore through me. Deeper. Lower. Relentless. My hands gripped the rail, my body folding into something I couldn't control, my breath breaking into pieces that didn't belong to any rhythm anymore. The monitor beside me kept tracing perfect lines, steady, calm, obedient, like the room itself refused to acknowledge how wrong everything had become. Time didn't blur. It fractured. Moments didn't flow into each other anymore. They snapped. A nurse came in once, quick, focused, efficient. She checked something, adjusted a line, said nothing meaningful, and left. I don't remember my mother moving for her. I only remember that she was still there after. Still near the door. Still in control of it. I kept asking. For him. For someone. For anything that felt like support instead of control. "He'll make this worse." That's what she said. Simple. Certain. Like it was already decided. That was when I stopped asking. Because by then, I understood. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't chaos. This was structure, and I was inside it. The pain went on, wave after wave, each one stripping something away. Strength, breath, time, clarity, until there was nothing left but the body doing what it had to do and the mind trying to survive it. And then, it stopped. Not slowly, not gently, abruptly, like something had been cut. Silence. Inside me. Then, a sound. Small, sharp, alive. My daughter. I turned my head. Barely. Saw movement. Blue fabric. Gloved hands. Light shifting across metal and plastic. And paper. Always paper. "I want her." The words didn't come out right. They barely came out at all. Later. I don't know how much later. A nurse returned. She held a clipboard. Her face was calm. Routine. Familiar. "Birth record," she said. That word should have felt normal. It didn't. She handed it to me. I took it. My hands were still shaking, but not from the pain anymore. Something else had replaced it. Something colder. I looked down. Name. Date. Time. Mother. For a second, I thought I couldn't read. That exhaustion had blurred everything, that this was just another moment my body couldn't keep up with. So I blinked, slowed down, read it again. And that's when it happened. The name wasn't mine. Everything inside me went still. Not quiet, not calm, still. Like something had just locked into place and refused to move again. The nurse frowned, looked at the paper, then at me, then back again. And I saw it. Before she said it. That shift. That break in certainty. This isn't you. Her voice dropped, like she hadn't meant to say it out loud, like the truth had moved faster than her training. My hand started shaking harder, uncontrollably now, because in that moment, everything aligned. The door. My husband kept out. My mother deciding who could enter. The hours I spent alone, screaming, pushing, breaking, while something else was being written. This wasn't a mistake. It was prepared. I looked back at the name. Clean. Official. Perfectly placed. Exactly where my life was supposed to begin again. And instead, it had been replaced. I thought the worst part of that night was screaming alone while my mother stood at the door. I was wrong. That was just the moment she made sure I wouldn't see what they were doing. The real moment was this one, when the nurse looked at the paper, then at me, and realized before I did, someone had already taken my place on my child's birth record. The nurse didn't take the paper back. She just held it there, between us. Like if she moved too quickly, something worse might happen. This isn't you. She said it again, quieter this time, more certain. I tried to answer, but my throat tightened, my breath caught halfway, and the words didn't come out the way I meant them to. That's my form. Even as I said it, I knew it wasn't, because my name wasn't there, not misspelled, not shortened, not wrong in a small, forgivable way. Gone. The nurse's eyes stayed on me, longer now, not checking, confirming. Then she leaned in slightly. Who filled this out? That question didn't feel like confusion. It felt like structure, like something had just moved from mistake to intention. I swallowed. My lips were dry. My mother. The word felt unfamiliar, like it no longer matched the person in the doorway. The nurse froze for half a second, not visibly enough for anyone else, but I saw it. That flicker, where instinct meets protocol. Then she straightened. Stay here. Stay here. Like I had anywhere else to go. She turned quickly, walked to the door, and opened it wider than before. And that's when I saw him. My husband. Standing right outside. Not pacing. Not arguing. Not leaving. Waiting. That hit harder than the paper. Because he hadn't disappeared. He hadn't abandoned me. He had been there the entire time. Just kept out. The nurse stepped into the hallway. Didn't close the door all the way. Just enough to let sound move through. And I heard it. Not every word, but enough. His voice. Sharp. Controlled. Held back just enough to keep from breaking into something louder. Then my mother's. Lower. Smoother. Still trying to shape the moment. She's not in a state to... The nurse cut in. Fast. Firm. No hesitation. Something changed immediately. Because now, this wasn't contained. The door opened wider. My husband walked in. Not rushing. Not panicking. Focused. He came straight to me. What happened? I didn't answer. I handed him the paper. That was enough. He looked down. Once, then again. Slower. And I saw the moment it hit him. Not confusion. Recognition. The same cold clarity that had just settled inside me. This isn't right. He didn't say it to me. He said it to the room. The nurse came back in, now fully present. No hesitation, no uncertainty. She took the clipboard, flipped through the pages, checked something quickly, then looked at me again. You didn't sign this. Not a question. I shook my head. No. She turned the page slightly, pointed to the signature line. There was a name there. Clean, steady, confident. Not mine. And that's when my hand started shaking again. Not from labor, not from exhaustion, from recognition. Because this wasn't just a wrong name. This was permission, authority, identity, given to someone else. My husband looked at the door, then back at me. She was here the whole time? I nodded, slowly. And now, he understood. This didn't happen after. It didn't happen in confusion. It didn't happen in a gap. It happened during. While I was in pain. While I couldn't move. While I couldn't speak clearly enough to stop anything. The nurse turned toward the hallway again. Can we get the attending physician? Her voice was louder now. Not panicked, but official. That word mattered. Because once something becomes official, it stops being private. My mother stepped into the doorway again. But this time, it didn't feel the same. She wasn't blocking. She was entering. And that shift changed everything. She looked at me, then at my husband, then at the nurse, and smiled. Soft, controlled, carefully placed. It's just a mix-up, she said. Too smooth, too ready. Because nothing about this was a mix-up. Not the name, not the signature, not the timing. My husband stepped forward. Who filled this out? Direct. No space to redirect. She didn't hesitate. I helped with the paperwork. Helped. That word hung in the air. Heavy. Wrong. Because help doesn't replace. Help doesn't remove someone completely from their own child's record. I looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, I wasn't trying to understand. I already did. This wasn't something that went wrong. It was something she decided. I looked back down at the form, at the name, at the clean, official line where I was supposed to exist. And finally, I asked the question I hadn't been ready to ask before. If that name wasn't mine, then whose life had she just tried to give to my child? The question didn't leave the room. It stayed there, quiet, unanswered, impossible to ignore. My husband looked at the paper again, then at me, then at her. Who is that? No softness, no space to move around it. My mother didn't answer, not immediately. That pause mattered, because she never pauses. She responds. She fills. She redirects before anyone else can decide what something means. But this time, she stood still. Then she stepped inside. Fully. Closed the door behind her. Not to block. To contain. It's administrative, she said. Calm. Measured. Like the explanation had already been prepared before the question was ever asked. The nurse didn't accept it. No, she said. Flat. Immediate. She tapped the form. Light. Precise. This is the mother's name. The air shifted. Because now, this wasn't interpretation. It was fact. My husband stepped closer. You wrote this. Not a guess. A line. My mother's expression didn't break. Not fully. But something tightened. Something small. And real. You were busy, she said. Busy. That word didn't belong in that room. Not after hours of labor. Not after pain that rewrote the body. Not after being alone while the door stayed closed. I handled it. That was when everything settled. Not confusion. Not doubt. Certainty. She didn't make a mistake. She didn't misunderstand. She acted. The nurse stepped in again. We're correcting this now. No hesitation, no negotiation. My mother shook her head. No. The same tone, the same control. But it didn't land the same way, because the room had changed. My husband moved. Just enough to stand between us. She doesn't get to decide that. Something about the way he said it didn't escalate the moment. It anchored it. The line became visible. I looked down again. At the name, at the signature. Clean, confident, practiced. Not mine. And then, something deeper clicked. Not in the room, inside me. This wasn't just about tonight. It couldn't be, because you don't write a name like that without knowing exactly what it means. You don't sign someone else's place without believing you're allowed to. I looked up. You planned this. The words came out softer than I expected, but they didn't need volume. They already carried weight. She didn't deny it, didn't argue, didn't correct me. She just said, "You weren't thinking clearly." The same sentence. Again. But now, it sounded different. Not like reassurance, not like control, like justification. And that changed everything. Because she wasn't explaining the mistake. She was explaining the decision. My husband turned toward her. You told them that? No answer. You told them she couldn't sign? Still nothing. But silence. When it sits that long, becomes confirmation. The nurse stepped closer. You didn't sign this, she said again. Not to her. To me. Grounding it. Returning it. I shook my head. No. And this time, there was no hesitation in it. The pen was placed in my hand. Simple. But it felt heavier than anything I had held that night. Because now, this wasn't just correction. It was reclaiming. I looked at the line again. At the space where I had been replaced. Then I wrote my name. Slow. Deliberate. Each letter steady. Not rushed. Not shaking. Like I was putting something back exactly where it belonged. When I finished, I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. Because the room had already moved. The nurse took the form. Checked it. Nodded once. And in that small, quiet motion, something closed. Not the moment. The version of it she had tried to create. I leaned back. Exhaustion settling in again. But it felt different now. Not helpless. Clear. I thought the worst part was seeing the wrong name. I was wrong. The worst part was realizing it had been written with intention. And the only reason it didn't stay that way was because someone looked at it and refused to pretend it was mine. The room didn't settle. It shifted. Subtly. Quietly. Like something invisible had just changed position, and everyone could feel it even if no one said it out loud. The form was corrected. My name was back. That should have been the end. It wasn't. Because nothing about this felt finished. My mother was still there. Not at the door anymore. Not blocking anything. Just standing. Watching. And for the first time, she wasn't directing the moment. She was inside it. That alone felt wrong. This is unnecessary, she said. Soft. Measured. Like she was trying to return the room to a version that no longer existed. No one answered. Not the nurse. Not my husband. Not even me. And that silence, that complete lack of response, cut deeper than any argument. Because she depends on reaction, agreement, correction, even conflict, anything that keeps her inside the structure. But now, there was no structure left for her to hold. The nurse continued working, checking entries, making notes, deliberate, focused, not once looking at her. That mattered, because when people like my mother are ignored, they don't lose control loudly, they lose it quietly. My husband stayed beside me, not tense, not reactive, just present. That presence did something simple. It removed her. Completely. You're overreacting, she said. There it was. The smallest version of it. The reduction. Make it smaller. Make it manageable. Make it seem like emotion. Not fact. But it didn't land. Not here. Not now. Because nothing about this was small. You replaced her name. The nurse said it without turning. Flat. Not accusation, not anger. Just truth. And truth, when it's that clean, doesn't leave space to move. My mother inhaled slowly, then stepped forward. One step. Careful. Measured. Like she was trying to re-enter something that had already closed. You weren't thinking clearly, she said again. The same line. But now, it didn't sound like control. It sounded like belief. And that changed everything. Because belief doesn't adapt. Belief doesn't adjust to the room. Belief stays, even when everything else has moved on. I looked at her, not with anger, not with confusion, with recognition. You locked the door. The words came out steady, not loud, but they landed, because they pulled everything back to the beginning, not the form, the moment that made it possible. My husband turned, fast. Is that true? She didn't answer, didn't deny it, didn't even try. And that silence said more than anything else she could have said, because if it wasn't true, she would have corrected it immediately. That's who she is. But she didn't. You were making it worse, she said. Quiet, almost gentle. And that was worse, because now she wasn't defending herself. She was defending the decision. You don't get to decide that. My husband didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to, because the line was already there. Clear, visible, unmovable. I leaned back slightly, not because I was tired, because I no longer needed to be in the center of it. For the first time, they were facing each other, not through me, not around me, directly. And that changed the balance. You don't understand what I was preventing, she said. Preventing. That word stayed. Heavy. Wrong. What were you preventing? I asked. She looked at me, longer than before, then said, You weren't ready. That was it. No details, no explanation, just a decision. And suddenly, everything made sense. Not just tonight. Everything. The way she spoke for me before I could answer. The way she corrected people before I could disagree. The way she stepped in just before I reached a moment that belonged to me. It wasn't habit. It was structure. She didn't think she was controlling me. She thought she was replacing me. When necessary. When I wasn't ready. And tonight, she decided I wasn't. The nurse stepped forward. We're done here. Simple. Final. And just like that, my mother stepped back. Not quickly, not dramatically, but enough. Because now, there was nothing left for her to hold on to. No authority, no narrative, no control. Just presence. And presence without control means nothing to someone like her. I looked at her one last time, clear. You didn't protect her. She met my eyes. For a second. Then I said it. You replaced me. No emphasis. No force. Just truth. And there was nowhere for her to go with it. I thought the worst part was what she did tonight. I was wrong. The worst part was realizing she believed she had the right to do it. And that meant this wasn't the first time she decided who I was allowed to be. She didn't leave. Not immediately. She stayed where she was, just inside the room, close enough to still belong to it, but far enough that nothing responded to her anymore. That space, between presence and absence, that's where she stood. I shifted slightly. Pain moved through me again, but it felt different now. Not overwhelming. Background. Because something else had taken its place. Recognition. I looked at my daughter. Really looked. Her face was small. Still new to the world. Still untouched by anything that had just happened. And for a second, I felt something sharp. Not fear. Clarity. Because whatever my mother had done, it hadn't worked. But the fact that she tried, that stayed. I was protecting her. Her voice cut through the quiet. Not loud, not emotional, certain. That word again. Her. Not me. Never me. My husband turned. From what? Simple question, but it didn't land simply, because the answer was already inside the room. From instability, there it was. Clean. Placed. And suddenly, I had heard it before. Not in this room. Not tonight. Earlier. Years earlier. She gets overwhelmed easily. She struggles under pressure. She needs guidance. Small sentences. Never said directly to me, always said around me. For me. About me. At school meetings. At appointments. At family gatherings where decisions were made just slightly too quickly for me to catch up. Not loud enough to challenge. Not direct enough to fight. But enough to build something. A version of me that wasn't fully wrong, just incomplete. Just unstable enough that someone else should step in. And she had been stepping in for years. I sat up slightly. The movement hurt. But I didn't stop. Because now, this wasn't about pain. You told them that. My voice came out steady. Not accusing. Not questioning. Recognizing. She didn't deny it. Didn't correct me. Didn't even shift. That was confirmation. My husband looked between us. You told the hospital she wasn't stable? Silence. But silence like that is louder than truth. I told them what they needed to know. That was her answer. Not a defense. A strategy. The nurse stopped moving. Just for a moment. Because now, this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was intentional. You told them she couldn't sign, my husband said. No answer. That you needed to, he added. Still nothing, but by now, nothing didn't mean anything. Everything was already clear. I looked down at the form again. My name, written over hers. That line meant more now. Because it wasn't just correction, it was resistance. You decided I wasn't ready, I said. She finally looked at me. Fully. And for a moment, I saw it. Not guilt. Not regret. Conviction. You weren't, she said. That was it. No hesitation. No doubt. Just belief. And that was worse than anything else. Because mistakes can be corrected. Panic can be understood. Even control can be challenged. But belief doesn't change. Not easily. You don't get to decide that. My husband's voice was lower now, not louder, stronger. 'Cause it didn't need force. It already had ground. The nurse stepped forward. We're updating everything in the system. Official, final. My mother looked at her, then at the chart, then at me. And for the first time, she hesitated. Not in speech, in certainty. Because now, the version she had built no longer matched reality. It wasn't holding. You're making this bigger than it is, she said. Smaller again. Reducing. But it didn't land. Not anymore. Because once something is seen clearly, it doesn't shrink again. I met her gaze. Calm. Unmoving. You didn't protect her. She didn't interrupt. You replaced me. That stayed. Between us. Unchallenged. Because there was nothing left to say around it. The nurse turned away. Continued working. My husband didn't move. Stayed exactly where he was. And slowly, the room adjusted. Not to her. To me. I thought the worst part was what she did tonight. I was wrong. The worst part was realizing she had been building this version of me for years. And tonight was just the first time it didn't work. No one raised their voice. That was the first thing I noticed. After everything, the door, the form, the words that didn't belong to me, there was no explosion. Just movement. Quiet. Deliberate. The kind of movement that doesn't ask for permission. The older nurse returned. Different presence. Not softer. More certain. She didn't introduce herself. didn't explain anything. She just stepped into the room and looked at me first, then the form, then my mother. That order mattered, because now I wasn't the center of a problem. I was the point of reference. We're going to update this formally. Her voice was steady, not loud, but it carried. Across the room, through the tension, past anything my mother might have said. And for the first time, no one challenged it, not even her. The clipboard moved, pages turned, notes added, every motion small but irreversible. Because this wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a record. And records don't argue. They replace. Can you confirm your full name? She asked it like she already knew the answer. Like she was just placing it exactly where it belonged. I said it. Slow. Clear. No hesitation. No interruption. She typed it in. Corrected it. Saved it. Right there. In front of everyone. That mattered. Because nothing about this was hidden anymore. Nothing could be reshaped later. Nothing could be quietly undone. It was fixed, and it stayed that way. My mother watched, still, silent, and for the first time, she didn't move toward anything, didn't redirect, didn't intervene, because there was nothing left to step into. You'll need to sign again. The pen was placed in my hand. I didn't rush, didn't hesitate either. I wrote my name again, the same letters, the same line. But this time, it felt different. Not like correction, like confirmation. The nurse checked it. Once, then closed the clipboard. A soft sound, barely noticeable, but it marked something. An ending. Not of the moment, of the version my mother had tried to create. She stepped forward. One step, then stopped. Like she had reached the edge of something she couldn't cross anymore. I was helping. Her voice was quieter now, less certain. The nurse didn't respond, didn't even look at her. She turned away, continued with the next task. And that was the moment it became final. Not because of what was said, because of what wasn't. No acknowledgement, no engagement. No space for her to exist inside the system anymore. You're not authorized to complete patient records. The words came without emphasis, without emotion, just fact. And facts, when they land that clean, don't leave room for interpretation. My mother didn't argue, didn't push, didn't even try to reshape it. She just stood there. And for the first time, she looked outside of it. Not above, not in control. Outside. The system had moved on. Without her. My husband exhaled. Slow. Like something had settled that he didn't know how to name yet. I leaned back. The exhaustion returned. Heavy. Real. But no longer threatening. Because the pressure was no longer on me. My daughter stirred. Small movement. Soft breath. I looked at her. And this time, nothing interrupted it. No voice. No hand. No correction. Just us. That's when I understood something. Not about my mother. About control. It doesn't break when someone fights it. It breaks when it stops working. And tonight, it stopped working. I thought correcting the name was the end of it. I was wrong. That was just the moment everything shifted. Because once something is written correctly, everything built on the wrong version starts to fall apart. She didn't leave right away. She stayed near the door, not blocking it anymore, not holding anything, just standing there like she hadn't decided yet what her place was without control. The room moved on without her. The nurse stepped out, came back with another chart. The doctor returned briefly, checked the updates, signed something, and left again. Everything continued. Not rushed, not chaotic, precise. And that was the part she couldn't follow. Because control, the kind she used, needs reaction, needs resistance, needs something to push against. But there was none. No one argued with her. No one explained anything to her. No one even looked at her long enough to keep her inside the moment. She was still there, but nothing included her. "I need to speak to someone in charge." She said it finally. Not loud, not desperate, but different. Because this time, she wasn't directing, she was asking. No one responded immediately. The nurse finished what she was doing, closed a file, adjusted something at the bedside. Then, without turning, "They're already aware." That was it. No detail, no expansion. Just enough to let the weight of it settle. Because now, this wasn't contained. Whatever had happened in that room had already moved beyond it. My mother felt that. Of course she did. Her posture changed. Subtle, but real. Less certain. More alert. Like she was trying to locate where the control had gone. "You're making this into something it isn't." She said it to the room. But the room didn't respond. Because now, it wasn't about interpretation. It was about record. And records don't shrink just because someone asks them to. My husband shifted slightly. Closer. Not in front of me. Not between us. Beside me. That mattered. Because now, he wasn't protecting me from her. He was standing with me in something she couldn't enter. Another staff member came in. Quiet conversation at the door. Low voices. Measured. I couldn't hear the words. But I could feel the tone. Serious. Structured. Something had been flagged. Something was being handled. Without her. She stepped forward. Just one step. I was trying to help. Her voice was softer now. Not weaker, but searching. Like she was testing which version of herself still worked. No one answered. Not even me, because there was nothing left to answer. The nurse handed something to the doctor. He signed, returned it, left. No hesitation, no conversation, just completion. That's when it became undeniable. This wasn't a moment anymore. It was a process, and she wasn't part of it. The door opened again. Someone gestured slightly. Not to me, to her. A quiet signal. Clear enough. Final enough. She looked at me. For a second. Longer than before. Like she was trying to find something still familiar. Something she could still step into. There was nothing. I didn't look away. Didn't soften it. Didn't offer her a way back in. Because there wasn't one. She turned. Slow. Walked to the door. Stopped for just a moment. As if waiting for something. A word. A reaction. A break in the silence. Nothing came, so she left. And this time, it wasn't controlled. It wasn't chosen. It was the only option left. The door closed behind her. Soft. Final. The room didn't change. Didn't react. Didn't acknowledge it. Because it had already moved on. I sat there. My daughter in my arms. My husband beside me. And for the first time, nothing felt unstable. Not because everything was fixed. Because everything was clear. I thought it would end when she walked out. I was wrong. It ended earlier. The moment the room stopped responding to her. Because once someone loses their place in the story, they don't leave it. They disappear from it. She didn't come back. Not that night. Not the next morning. No message. No call. No version of her voice trying to reshape what had already settled. And that silence felt different from all the others. It wasn't control. It wasn't strategy. It was absence. Real absence. The room was quiet. Not empty. Full. In a way it hadn't been before. My daughter slept against my chest. Her breathing soft. Steady. Unaware of how close something had come to rewriting the moment she entered the world. My husband sat beside me. not speaking, not asking questions, just there. And for the first time since the contractions began, since the door closed, since my voice disappeared into pain, nothing felt taken from me. A nurse came in, routine checks, soft movements, low voice. She handed me the final copy, the record, clean, correct. My name exactly where it should be. I looked at it. Not long, just enough to see it, to recognize it, to understand what it meant. Then I let my hand relax. Didn't grip it. Didn't hold on to it like something fragile, because it wasn't. Not anymore. The paper wasn't the point. It never was. The moment was. The line where someone tried to replace me and failed. I handed the form back. No hesitation. No second look. Because I didn't need it to prove anything. I already knew. The hospital settled into its rhythm again. Lights dimmed. Voices softened. Footsteps became distant. Everything returning to something that looked like normal, but it wasn't the same. Not for me, because something inside me had shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just completely. I didn't feel stronger. I didn't feel like I had won. I didn't feel relief the way people describe it. I felt clear. Clear about what happened. Clear about what it meant. Clear about what would never be allowed to happen again. The next morning, the light came in slowly, soft across the bed, quiet across the room. My daughter stirred, opened her eyes for just a second, then settled again. And in that moment, everything was simple. Not easy, but simple. She was mine, and I was there. No one standing in the doorway. No one deciding for me. No one writing over me while I couldn't speak. Just me, present, unreplaced. I thought the worst part was being alone in that room. Then I thought it was the form. Then I thought it was her. I was wrong. The worst part would have been never knowing. If no one had said it out loud, if the nurse had stayed quiet, if the name had remained clean, official, unquestioned, I would have signed nothing, and something permanent would have been built without me ever seeing it. But that didn't happen, because someone looked at a single line and refused to pretend it was correct. And I didn't let anyone rewrite it again. I adjusted my hold on my daughter, careful, certain, not because I was afraid of losing her, because I understood now what it means to be present, not just physically, but fully, unreplaced. I kept my name, and this time, no one took it from me.